The wedding invitation sat on my kitchen counter for 3 weeks before I could bring myself to open it. Not because I didn't want to celebrate my son's marriage, but because I knew what opening that envelope meant. It meant confronting the fact that Tyler was leaving, really leaving, to join a family that had everything I'd never been able to give him. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm 52 years old, and for the past 28 years, I've worked as a maintenance supervisor at Riverside Manufacturing. It's not glamorous work. I fix broken machines, manage a crew of 6 good men, and make sure production lines keep moving. I clock in at 6 a.m. every morning, same as I have since Tyler was 2 years old, and his mother walked out the door without looking back. That morning she left, Angela didn't even pack a bag. Just grabbed her purse, looked at me holding our sleeping son, and said 5 words that would define the next 3 decades of my life. I can't do this anymore. The divorce papers arrived by mail 2 weeks later, along with custody documents that gave me full parental rights. She didn't want shared custody, didn't want visitation. She wanted out, completely and permanently. So I became both mother and father to a 2-year-old boy while working full-time at a factory that paid just enough to keep us afloat. I learned to cook macaroni and cheese 50 different ways. I became an expert at patching torn jeans and getting crayon stains out of walls. I taught myself to braid hair for picture day because Tyler insisted he wanted to look like his friend's sister. I was terrible at it, but Tyler wore those crooked braids proudly. The wedding invitation was heavy, expensive cardstock with embossed lettering. Tyler's fiancée, Vanessa Morrison, came from money, real money. Her father, Charles Morrison, owned Morrison & Associates, a prestigious law firm downtown. Her mother, Patricia, had a doctorate in economics and taught at the university. Vanessa herself had graduated summa cum laude from an Ivy League school and was already making partner track at her father's firm at age 26. And then there was me. High school diploma, factory supervisor, raising a son in a 2-bedroom apartment above Murphy's hardware store. Tyler had met Vanessa 3 years ago when his small tech startup needed legal counsel. He'd built that company from nothing, coding in our living room night after night while I brought him coffee and sandwiches. He was brilliant, my boy. Got himself through community college and then state university on scholarships and determination. Everything he'd accomplished, he'd earned himself. But I knew what Vanessa's family thought of me. Tyler had mentioned it carefully, trying to soften the blow. Dad, just so you know, the Morrisons are kind of formal. They care a lot about credentials and education. Don't let them get to you, okay? The wedding was at the Grandview Estate, the kind of place I'd only seen in magazines. A sprawling mansion with manicured gardens, a ballroom with crystal chandeliers, and a guest list that read like a who's who of successful professionals. I rented a suit that didn't quite fit right, bought new shoes that pinched my feet, and drove my 15-year-old truck to the venue. When I arrived at the reception hall, a young woman with a clipboard directed me to my seat. Name, please? Robert Hayes. I'm the father of the groom. She scanned her list, found my name, and led me to a table near the back. Not at the head table where Tyler would be, not even close to the front. My table was positioned behind a decorative column, partially obscured from the main festivities. That should have been my first warning. The other guests at my table were friendly enough. Factory workers I'd invited. My brother Dean and his wife Susan, my neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who'd babysat Tyler when he was young. We were the blue-collar section, segregated from the lawyers and doctors and business executives filling the tables near the front. The ceremony was beautiful. Tyler looked handsome in his tuxedo, his eyes bright with happiness as Vanessa walked down the aisle in a dress that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. I cried watching him say his vows, remembering the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, who made me Father's Day cards with stick figures and too much glue. But it was the reception where everything fell apart. The reception hall was magnificent. Round tables draped in ivory linens, centerpieces of white roses and orchids, place settings with more forks and spoons than I knew what to do with. At the head table, Tyler and Vanessa sat surrounded by the bridal party, all of them laughing and toasting with champagne that came in bottles I couldn't pronounce. I found my seat at table 14, tucked behind that column, and that's when I saw it. Each place setting had a nameplate, elegant cards with calligraphy announcing each guest. Most said simple things. Dr. Richard Morrison for Vanessa's uncle. Judge Patricia Anderson for a family friend. Director James Walsh for one of Charles Morrison's colleagues. My nameplate sat in front of me like a slap across the face. It read, Robert Hayes, low-educated maintenance worker, fake dad. I stared at those words, reading them over and over, my hands starting to shake. Low-educated, fake dad. Someone had specifically requested this nameplate, had paid to have these words printed, had decided this was how I should be identified at my own son's wedding. Rob, what the hell is this? My brother Dean was looking at the nameplate with growing anger. Did you see what they put on your card? Mrs. Patterson picked it up, her face going red. This is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. Who would do such a thing? I looked toward the head table. Vanessa's mother, Patricia Morrison, was watching our table with a smile that could only be described as satisfied. She leaned over to whisper something to her husband, Charles, and they both looked my way. Charles raised his champagne glass slightly, a mocking toast. Near them sat Vanessa's brother, Preston Morrison, a corporate attorney who'd made it clear from the first time we met that he found my existence amusing. He was pointing at my table, saying something to the guests around him. They all turned to look, and several of them laughed. Rob, we should leave, Dean said, putting his hand on my shoulder. You don't have to take this. But I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at that nameplate, feeling every insecurity I'd buried for 28 years come flooding back. The nights I'd gone to bed hungry so Tyler could have seconds at dinner. The times I'd worn the same worn-out work boots for 3 years because Tyler needed new clothes for school. The parent-teacher conferences where other fathers showed up in suits while I came straight from the factory, my hands still stained with machine grease. I'd thought my sacrifices mattered. I'd thought raising Tyler, loving him, being there for every scraped knee and bad dream and proud moment made me his real father. But to these people, I was just low-educated maintenance worker, and worse, a fake dad. The insult cut deeper than anything Angela had done when she abandoned us. At least she'd been honest about not wanting to be a mother. These people were telling me that everything I'd given Tyler for 28 years didn't count because I didn't have the right credentials, the right job, the right background. I need to get out of here, I said quietly, standing up. Dad, wait. Tyler's voice cut through the noise of the reception. I turned to see him walking toward me, and I realized he'd seen the nameplate. His face was pale, his jaw tight with an emotion I couldn't quite read. Tyler, I'm sorry, I said quickly. I don't want to ruin your wedding. I'll just head home. He looked at the nameplate in my hand, then at his new in-laws at the head table. Patricia Morrison was still watching us with that satisfied smile. Charles had turned back to his conversation with a judge, already dismissing us. Tyler took the nameplate from my hand and read it slowly. When he looked up, his eyes were filled with tears. Dad, let's go home. What? No, Tyler, this is your wedding. You can't leave your own wedding. Watch me. He turned to the head table and raised his voice. Vanessa, we need to talk. Now. The reception went quiet. 300 guests stopped eating, drinking, talking, all eyes turning toward us. Vanessa stood up slowly, confusion crossing her face. Tyler, what's wrong? He held up the nameplate. Did you know about this? Vanessa's expression shifted from confusion to understanding to horror. Oh my God! Tyler, I didn't. I swear I didn't know. But your mother did. Tyler's voice was cold now, controlled fury replacing the initial shock. Didn't she? Patricia Morrison stood up, her smile never wavering. Tyler, darling, there's no need to make a scene. It's just a small joke, a bit of humor to lighten the mood. A joke? Tyler's voice rose. You called my father fake? You insulted the man who raised me, who sacrificed everything for me, who taught me what real love and real commitment look like? Charles Morrison cleared his throat. Now, son, let's be reasonable. We paid for this wedding. We welcomed you into our family. All we did was acknowledge certain truths about backgrounds and education. Truths? Tyler laughed, a bitter sound I'd never heard from him before. You want to talk about truth? Here's the truth. My father worked 60-hour weeks to keep a roof over my head. He learned to cook because I had food allergies and we couldn't afford a dietitian. He taught himself algebra and trigonometry from YouTube videos so he could help me with homework. He never missed a single parent-teacher conference, not one, even when it meant losing pay at work. He walked toward the head table, his voice carrying across the silent reception hall. And you know what the real truth is? My father did all of that without a college degree, without family money, without any of the advantages you people take for granted. He did it because he loved me, because he chose me, because being a father isn't about biology or credentials or social status. It's about showing up every single day, no matter how hard it gets. Vanessa was crying now. Tyler, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were going to do this. Maybe you didn't, Tyler said, his voice softening slightly. But your family did, and they clearly don't respect the person I am or where I come from. He turned back to me. Dad, I meant what I said. Let's go home. Tyler, please, I said quietly. Don't throw away your marriage over this. We can talk about it later. There's nothing to talk about later. He took off his tuxedo jacket and laid it across a chair. These people just showed me exactly who they are, and I'm not going to spend my life apologizing for the fact that my father is the best man I've ever known, regardless of his education level or job title. Preston Morrison stood up, his face red. You're making a mistake, Tyler. Walking away from this family, from these connections. Do you have any idea what we can do for your career? I don't want anything you can do for my career, Tyler said flatly. I built my company myself. I'll continue building it myself. Tyler had a lot more to say, but I need you to hear what happened next. If you're finding value in this story, if it's making you think differently about what really matters in life, please hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment below about a time when someone underestimated you or someone you love. And give this video a like so more people can hear Tyler's story and remember that worth isn't measured in degrees or bank accounts. Now back to what happened at that wedding. Tyler walked over to where I was standing and took my arm. Come on, Dad, we're leaving. Tyler, no, Vanessa said, stepping down from the head table. Please don't do this. We can fix this. I'll make my parents apologize. We can have them remove that horrible nameplate. It's not just about the nameplate, Vanessa, Tyler said, and I could hear the pain in his voice. It's about what it represents. Your family will always look down on my dad. They'll always see him as less than, as something to be ashamed of. And I won't live my life pretending that's acceptable. Charles Morrison's voice turned cold. If you walk out of here, Tyler, you're throwing away more than just this wedding. You're throwing away your wife, your future with this family, potentially your business relationships. Is that really worth it over some hurt feelings? Tyler looked at his new father-in-law with something close to pity. Mr. Morrison, the fact that you can ask that question tells me everything I need to know about your values. Yes, it's worth it. My dad is worth it. He's always been worth it. We walked out together, Tyler still in his wedding attire minus the jacket, me in my ill-fitting rental suit. Behind us, 300 guests sat in stunned silence. I could hear Vanessa crying, could hear Patricia Morrison's sharp voice beginning to spin the narrative, could hear the whispers starting. In the parking lot, Tyler stood next to my old truck and laughed. Actually laughed. You know what, Dad? I've never felt more sure about anything in my life. Tyler, you just walked out on your own wedding. I know. He looked up at the evening sky, and it feels like the first honest thing I've done in months. We drove back to my apartment above Murphy's hardware store, both of us quiet. I kept expecting Tyler to regret his decision, to realize what he'd thrown away. But when we got home and I made coffee the way I always had, in my old percolator that took forever but made the best coffee, Tyler sat at our small kitchen table and smiled. This, he said, looking around the cramped apartment where I'd raised him. This has always been home, not that mansion, not that reception hall, this place, with you. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying the reception, the nameplate, Tyler's speech, the walk out. I thought about Vanessa crying, about the marriage that had ended before it really began. I thought about the consequences Tyler would face for choosing me over the Morrison family and their connections, but mostly I thought about what he'd said. Being a father isn't about biology or credentials or social status. It's about showing up every single day. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. It was 6 a.m. and I was supposed to be at the factory, but I'd called in sick for the first time in 5 years. The number was unknown. Mr. Hayes, This is Jennifer Mitchell from Morrison & Associates. I'm Mr. Charles Morrison's executive assistant. My stomach dropped. Here it was. The lawsuit, the harassment, whatever revenge the Morrisons had planned. I'm calling because there's been an incident at the firm this morning, and it involves your son Tyler. Could you come downtown immediately? I threw on clothes and drove to the Morrison & Associates building, my mind racing through possibilities. Had Tyler gone to confront them? Had they pressed charges for something? Had Vanessa done something drastic? The law firm occupied 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. I'd never been inside before. The lobby was all marble and modern art, the kind of place where my work boots felt like a violation. Jennifer Mitchell met me at the elevator, a professional woman in her 40s who looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming so quickly. Tyler is in the main conference room with the partners. There's been a significant development regarding yesterday's events. She led me through a maze of corridors lined with expensive artwork and plaques announcing various legal victories. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Around a massive table sat Charles Morrison, Patricia Morrison, 3 other partners I didn't recognize, and Tyler. Vanessa was there too, sitting as far from her parents as possible, her eyes red from crying. "Robert," Charles Morrison said, standing when I entered. His voice was different from yesterday. Quieter, more controlled. "Thank you for coming." "What's going on?" I looked at Tyler. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Dad." Tyler gestured to an empty chair. "Sit down. You need to hear this." One of the other partners, a woman named Ellen Rodriguez, according to her nameplate, just her name, nothing insulting, cleared her throat. "Mr. Hayes, I'm the managing partner of this firm. Last night, after the wedding incident, I received a concerning phone call from Tyler regarding discriminatory behavior by firm principals toward you. This morning," she continued, "I conducted an emergency review of the situation. What I discovered is that the nameplate incident was not an isolated event. It was part of a pattern of discrimination and hostile behavior that violates not only our firm's ethics policies, but potentially several employment and civil rights statutes." Charles Morrison's face was red. "Ellen, this is a family matter. There's no need to involve firm business." "It became firm business," Ellen said sharply, "when you used firm resources to create that nameplate. When you used your position as senior partner to pressure the wedding planner into implementing it. And when you made statements to other partners about Tyler's suitability for association with this firm based on his father's educational background and occupation." I looked at Tyler. "What did you do?" "I documented everything," Tyler said quietly. "Every conversation where your name came up, every snide comment about your job, every time they suggested I should be embarrassed by my background. I recorded yesterday's conversation in the parking lot where Patricia explicitly stated that having a blue-collar father would limit my access to their social circle." "That's illegal recording," Charles protested. "Illinois is a one-party consent state," Tyler replied. "I'm within my rights." Ellen Rodriguez continued. "Additionally, Tyler brought to my attention that the firm recently denied a significant contract to his technology company, specifically because Charles Morrison believed it would reflect poorly on the firm to be associated with someone of Tyler's questionable background." "What?" Vanessa looked at her father with shock. "Dad, you cost Tyler that contract? You told me the firm decided to go with a larger tech company." Charles was silent. "The contract in question," Ellen said, "was worth approximately $2.3 million over 3 years. Tyler's company was the most qualified bidder, but Charles used his position to steer the contract elsewhere. That's not just unethical. It's potentially actionable interference with business relationships." The room went very quiet. Ellen looked directly at Charles and Patricia. "As of this morning, you're both being placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. The firm's ethics committee will review not only yesterday's incident, but the broader pattern of discriminatory behavior. Depending on the findings, you may face suspension, termination, or in the worst case, disbarment proceedings." Patricia finally spoke, her voice shaking. "This is absurd. We paid for that wedding. We welcomed Tyler into our family. One small joke at the reception and now our careers are at stake?" "Mom," Vanessa said quietly, "it wasn't a joke, and it wasn't small. You deliberately humiliated the man who raised my husband. You used your position and money to make him feel worthless at what should have been a celebration. The firm has a reputation to maintain," Ellen continued. We represent clients from all socioeconomic backgrounds. We cannot have senior partners who demonstrate bias against blue-collar workers, who believe education and wealth determine a person's worth, or who use their positions to punish those they deem inferior. I sat there processing all of this. Tyler had gone to war with his new in-laws, had put their careers on the line, had potentially destroyed his marriage before it even started. Tyler, I said quietly, this is too much. You didn't need to do this. Yes, I did, Dad. He looked at me with absolute certainty. You spent 28 years fighting for me. It's time I fought for you. Ellen Rodriguez turned to me. Mr. Hayes, the firm would like to offer you a formal apology on behalf of these partners. Additionally, we're prepared to discuss compensation for the emotional distress caused by yesterday's incident. I don't want compensation, I said. I just want respect. You have it, Ellen said firmly. From this firm, from me, and from everyone in this room who understands that being a good father has nothing to do with degrees or job titles. The meeting continued for another hour, working through details and next steps, but I stopped listening closely. I was watching Tyler and Vanessa across the table. They weren't sitting together, but they kept glancing at each other, and I could see something passing between them. Hurt, yes, but also understanding. Finally, Ellen adjourned the meeting. Charles and Patricia left without speaking, their humiliation complete. The other partners offered polite goodbyes. Eventually, it was just me, Tyler, Vanessa, and Ellen. Tyler, Vanessa said softly, can we talk? Privately? Tyler looked at me. I nodded. Go ahead, son. I'll wait in the lobby. Actually, Ellen said, Mr. Hayes, could I speak with you for a moment, in my office? I followed her down another corridor to a corner office that was somehow both impressive and welcoming. Ellen gestured for me to sit. Mr. Hayes, I wanted to apologize personally. Not just for what happened at the wedding, but for the fact that our firm's culture allowed partners like Charles Morrison to maintain those attitudes for so long. It's not your fault, I said. It is, though, she replied. I'm the managing partner. Creating an inclusive environment is my responsibility. What happened to you yesterday was unacceptable, and it happened because I didn't pay enough attention to the warning signs. She pulled out a folder. I've been reviewing Tyler's company. His work is exceptional. The firm should have been grateful to contract with him, not using his background as a reason to deny him opportunities. Tyler's brilliant, I said. Always has been. He got that from his mother's side. Angela was smart, just couldn't handle the responsibility of parenthood. Ellen smiled. From what I've seen, he got his work ethic and determination from his father's side. Those qualities are worth more than any degree. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing in particular. When I finally made my way back to the lobby, I found Tyler and Vanessa sitting together on a couch, holding hands and talking quietly. They looked up when I approached. Dad, Tyler said, Vanessa and I have been talking. We want to do the wedding over, Vanessa said. The right way this time. Small ceremony, just the people who actually matter. No expensive venue, no pretentious guest list, no nameplates except ones that say what's really important. Family. You two sure about that? I asked. Yesterday was pretty definitive. Yesterday, Tyler said, was about making a statement. Today is about making a choice. And I choose Vanessa. But I also choose you, Dad. I'm done pretending those things are in conflict. Vanessa nodded. My parents were wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. But Tyler's right about what matters. I fell in love with him knowing where he came from, knowing his story. I should have been proud of that, not letting my parents make me ashamed. Your parents are facing serious consequences, I pointed out. They deserve them, Vanessa said firmly. What they did was cruel and discriminatory, but that doesn't mean Tyler and I can't build something different, something better. 3 weeks later, we held a small ceremony in my brother Dean's backyard. 50 guests, most of them working-class folks who'd known Tyler since he was a baby. The wedding planner was Mrs. Patterson, who organized everything with military precision and maternal love. The cake came from Martinez Bakery, where I'd bought birthday cakes for 28 years. The music was provided by a band that usually played at the local Union Hall. My nameplate at the table read simply, Robert Hayes, father of the groom. Tyler gave a speech that made everyone cry. He talked about the difference between showing up and showing off, between real wealth and real worth. He thanked me for teaching him that character isn't built in fancy schools or prestigious jobs, but in everyday choices to do right by the people you love. Vanessa spoke too. She apologized publicly for her family's behavior and announced that she was leaving Morrison & Associates to start her own practice, focusing on representing workers in employment discrimination cases. Her first client would be advocating for better treatment of maintenance workers at a certain manufacturing plant. Charles and Patricia Morrison didn't attend. They were still on administrative leave, facing ethics reviews that would likely end their careers at the firm. Preston Morrison sent a gift with a note that simply said, "I was wrong. Congratulations to you both." The investigation Ellen Rodriguez had launched ended up uncovering years of discriminatory practices at Morrison & Associates. 3 senior partners were forced out. The firm implemented mandatory bias training and created a new diversity initiative. They even hired a consultant to review their contracting practices to ensure decisions were based on merit rather than social connections. And Tyler's company? Without Charles Morrison's interference, word got out about the quality of his work. Within 6 months, he'd landed 3 major contracts, including one with a law firm looking to update their technology systems. Morrison & Associates actually ended up hiring him, under Ellen Rodriguez's leadership, paying him fairly and treating him with respect. I went back to my job at the factory. Same morning shift, same crew, same machines. But something had changed. The guys had heard about the wedding, about Tyler's speech, about standing up to the rich folks who looked down on us. It became a point of pride. We weren't just maintenance workers. We were fathers and sons and brothers who showed up every day, who built and fixed and created, who held families together with calloused hands and determined hearts. Tyler and Vanessa built a good marriage. They bought a modest house in a middle-class neighborhood halfway between their offices. They had dinner with me every Sunday, and Vanessa learned to cook the mac and cheese recipes I'd perfected over 28 years. She called me Dad within 6 months, and I could tell she meant it. The funny thing about that nameplate, that low-educated maintenance worker, fake dad, insult that was meant to diminish me, is that it ended up proving everything it tried to deny. Because when Tyler walked away from wealth and prestige and social status to stand beside me, he showed the world what a real father-son relationship looks like. Education doesn't make you a parent. Money doesn't make you a father. Being there does. Sacrificing does. Loving someone enough to put their needs above your own comfort, that makes you family. I still have that nameplate. I keep it in my toolbox at work, right next to the Father's Day card Tyler made me when he was 6. Crayon drawings, too much glue, and the words, "Best Dad in the Whole World," spelled just wrong enough to be perfect. Both items remind me of the same truth. Worth isn't determined by credentials or wealth or social status. Worth is measured in moments, in sacrifices made and love given, in choosing to show up day after day, even when it's hard. Charles Morrison had prestige and wealth and all the markers of success, but when the moment came to show real character, he failed. Tyler, raised in a 2-bedroom apartment by a factory worker, knew exactly who he was and what mattered. That difference didn't come from education or money. It came from values, from integrity, from the daily lessons learned in a home where love was the only luxury we could afford. Last month, Tyler called me with news. Vanessa was pregnant. I'm going to be a grandfather. And when Tyler told me, he said something I'll never forget. "Dad, I've been thinking about what kind of father I want to be, and I realized I already have the perfect example. You taught me that being a dad isn't about providing everything your kid wants. It's about being everything your kid needs. That baby will grow up with advantages I never could have given Tyler. College funds, music lessons, family vacations. But I hope Tyler also teaches that child what I taught him. That real wealth is measured in time spent, in presence, in the choice to keep showing up even when the world tells you you're not enough. Because the truth is, I was always enough. Not because of my education or my job or my bank account. I was enough because I loved my son with everything I had, and I taught him through example that worth comes from character, not credentials. The Morrison family lost their standing at the firm, lost their reputation, lost their influence. All because they couldn't see that the most valuable thing in that wedding reception wasn't the crystal chandeliers or the expensive champagne or the designer dresses. It was the relationship between a father and son, built over 28 years of sacrifice and love. And in the end, Tyler chose that relationship over everything else they offered. He chose me. Not because I was impressive or educated or wealthy, but because I was real. Because our bond was built on truth and presence and everyday devotion. That's what real family looks like. Not nameplates and credentials and social status. Real family looks like a factory worker raising a son in a 2-bedroom apartment, teaching him that character matters more than class, that showing up matters more than showing off, that love is the only currency that really counts. So to Charles and Patricia Morrison, wherever they are now in their diminished careers and damaged reputations, I have only this to say. Thank you. Thank you for that nameplate. Thank you for making your contempt so clear that my son had to choose between your world and ours. Because his choice that day, walking away from your wedding and your money and your prestige to stand beside his low-educated maintenance worker fake dad, proved something I'd always believed, but sometimes doubted. I raised him right, and that's worth more than all the degrees and wealth and social status in the world. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm 52 years old. I work as a maintenance supervisor at Riverside Manufacturing, and I'm the proudest father who ever lived. Not because my son is successful, though he is. Not because he married well, though Vanessa turned out to be wonderful. I'm proud because when it mattered most, Tyler knew exactly who his real father was. And no nameplate, no amount of money, no social climbing family could ever change that truth. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the people in your life who showed up for you regardless of their credentials or status, share it. Leave a comment about someone who loved you not with wealth, but with presence. And remember, the best things in life aren't measured in degrees or dollars. They're measured in moments, in sacrifices, in the choice to keep loving even when the world tells you you're not enough. Because you are enough. You always were.